Welcome back, Dr. Chapple. Such a pleasure to have you again. I've been thinking about what you spoke about last time. So many things. In particular, the concept of ahimsa, nonviolence. We know what a powerful effect that value, the dharmic value, had on the history of India. But of course, when Jainism was developed and created and populated and spread, that might not have been its primary concern. It was more probably the philosophy of why is that so integral in Jain beliefs and practices. So if you could speak a little bit about, I don't want to get into hardcore philosophy, but the philosophies of where does nonviolence fit in and
Right.
how does it get practiced in life?
Such a beautiful question. And in my own life, this is what brought me into the study of world religions. And this is what specifically brought me into the study of Jainism because of the early articulation of this as a way of engaging and regarding the world, as well as their thorough approach. And it's so interesting, the suggestion is made that somehow if things become philosophical, they're abstract. But what Jainism did was to thread every aspect of what can be undertaken through the philosophical quest with the prism of nonviolence. So we begin with cosmology. What is the structure of the universe? And their answer is that life is everywhere. Life in full integrity is to be found in every plant, in every insect, in every bird, every squirrel, every rabbit, and that we live within a hierarchy that carries an ethical imperative, and that the best of the best amongst us are able to remarkably well respect, honor, and uphold the life of living beings in such a way that there's a kindness and a benevolence made possible. So one of the things that this translates into in terms, so that's cosmology, it's also ethics, it's also aesthetics, a very important component of a philosophical worldview is the capacity to celebrate beauty. And there's this wonderful, wonderful passage from Jain scripture, from the Acharanga Sutra. And Mahavira, the 24th Tirthankara, holding forth to his assembled monks and nuns, and all of the Tirthankaras assembled literally thousands, mainly nuns, but also monks as their followers. And he said, regard that tree. Isn't it beautiful? Now, if we think back to the economy of 2,500 years ago, the tree was the most important commodity. And we know from Buddhist literature that the clear cutting of India was taking place. And we lament the clear cutting now in Brazil. We lament the clear cutting in Indonesia and Madagascar. We don't even remember the clear cutting that happened on the entire North American continent. Thank goodness there's some virgin forest left. But Mahavira spoke out against that form of ecological ravage that was so visible from every side. And he said, when you look at a tree, do not size up that tree in terms of the number of buckets that you can craft from that tree. Do not look at that tree and see how big a cart you can make out of that tree. Do not look at that tree, even with the idea of making something beautiful out of that tree. Let that tree be. Love the spread of its limbs. Love the color generated by its leaves and its trunk and its branches. Love the fragrance that periodically, with the seasons, comes from that tree. Love the tree. And that is a very, very beautiful philosophy that's all about correcting your view, all about letting life live, letting be what is.
You know, it connects to the other ethical principle we were talking about when you talk about ahimsa, asteya, aparigraha, to be mindful of what is ours and what is not ours, and not have agreed to extend or overextend our area or space. I'm curious, is there a resource, text, or tradition that Jainism says it comes from in that sense? Because where did this concept of ahimsa and nonviolence?
Yeah, this is where I'm so happy to have had the honor of studying with the leading scholar from Africa on oral literature. And I think that everyone knows that the Vedas, even today, are memorized. All 1,008, if you're doing the Rig Veda, and the Samaveda, a few less, but people have remarkable capacity to remember and to transmit. And the Phoenicians brought writing into India of a modern sort around 500 BC, and eventually these texts got written down. But what we discover with the Vedas, what we discover with the early literature of Jainism, is that it goes so far back, and then it was eventually written down, but the core teachings are designed in such a way that they can be immediately remembered and recalled. They're organized into either groups of 7 or 4, sometimes groups of 9. But in Jainism, this teaching was there from the beginning. There is life. This life becomes obscured with karma. Karma comes in. Karma can be good karma. Karma can be bad karma. Karma can be stopped. Karma can be expelled. And when that happens, we find release. And this wisdom is so universal. It's ethical, it's applied, it's psychological, and it's cosmological because it emphasizes our relationships with other living beings. And eventually it became codified in a text by the 4th or 5th century called the Tattvartha Sutra, put together by Umasvati and all of the Jains. The Jains had a difficult historical moment where they got separated, one group from the other, and they have some Digambara ideas that are different from Svetambara ideas, but they all agree on the principles and philosophy put forth by Umasvati in this text. And we know that he is hearing the echoes of centuries before, and we know that the relevance continues and will continue into the future.
You know, and you touch upon another point over here, that when you describe the visual of karma as almost being the tarnish that accumulate over that core of you, soul, if you will, and when those karmas are dissolved or dissipated, or they fall away, that's when there is liberation. So the Jain way of living, what is it that is prescribed as the optimal way of living?
Yeah, so good. Baseline will be vegetarianism because our food creates our body. And if our food is a product of an act of violence, then that violence will reside to a degree within our body. And thank goodness for the ingenious agriculturalists that they were able to put together a diet with pulses and grain, and a little bit of milk in the old days was part of that diet, still is in most of India. But this enabled minimal harm to other life forms. Another aspect of the lifestyle was fidelity. And even today, we know that teenagers, oh my gosh, they can fall in and out of love so easily, and it can be so wrenching emotionally. And there is advice given that let's really try to restrain from getting too involved in what could very easily cascade into samsaric drama, and remain faithful. So in modern times, everything is being reconfigured and rethought, but traditionally there would be an emphasis on a very settled lifestyle in terms of family and the creation of family, and then examination of businesses. And what the Jains did was reject involvement in any trade of weapons, to reject trade of any object that would be associated with even the byproducts of butchery, to gravitate toward professions that, and here's where the cosmology comes in, they have an edict that if an object has only one sense, that is the sense of touch, such as this statue crafted of marble, such as this chest, which is made of wood, then, or this pot holding the marigolds, which is made of clay, all of these things are of the earth, and the earth has only one sense, and we have permission. Our food coming from the earth has one sense. So marble crafting, very important. Jewelry, very important. And then even the abstractions. Money. Okay. Money, we can, in the old days, it would be gold coin. In more recent times, money made out of paper, which is 1 cent. And now the virtual money, with the Jains became the jewelers of India and remain thus, many of them. They became the bankers of India, and they also became the publishers of India. Times of India, even today, is run by a Jain family. Some of the great publishing houses of India remain within very, very old Jain families. And they were open in terms of the ideas of others. So during the Mughal period, the city of Jaipur was created in part to give safe haven for the Jains that were the bankers for the Mughals. And in exchange, the Jains received protection. If you've ever been to the heart of Chandni Chowk and right at the Red Fort, magnificent Jain temple, hundreds of years old, that was paid for and sanctioned by Shah Jahan. And so much interchange between cultures. They were very instrumental during the British period in terms of trade, and they remain valued business partners by so many in the fields of irrigation, in the fields of construction, in the fields of air conditioning. Believe it or not, air conditioning was brought to India by a modern Jain who saw this technology as key and critical to the flourishing India that we experience today.
Beautiful. When you say talk about the impact of religion or philosophy, the beliefs on not just the lifestyle of people and arts, sciences, just the entire culture and economy too. So having said that, what is the role of meditation in a person's life when they practice Jainism?
meditation, it takes so many forms. And I'll just give a few examples. And I've been working with a section of the Yoga Bindu from the 6th century that describes setting up puja as a type of meditation. To gather some flowers, to gather an image perhaps, although many Jains will have no image as part of their meditation, to settle in, to be able to do japa, to be able to say something to bring the mind to a place of clarity. And generally every morning, to walk to the temple, to be in the company of others. And the meditation is a tactile, kinetic meditation. In other words, these images, if it's a Murti Puja, if it's a temple that includes images, you will see these people, all ages, all walks of life, putting on special clean clothes, puja clothes, and they will be polishing and polishing and polishing. And I was gifted by a student with a very antique image of Parshvanath. And you could see that every day this had been cleaned and polished. And in that very physical act, there's a veneration and there's a focus. There's a real drawing together of the senses. And if you think, there's touch, there's smell, the flowers, of course, are offered, there's seeing, and no tasting, okay, in the temple, you sort of set that aside for later, and you might take prasad home, but that would not be on the list of to do within the temple. But you will also see people reciting texts. You'll be able to hear some of this. You'll see people standing. You'll see people going inward, doing parikrama, taking that moral inventory of those dusty, dark karmas that are obscuring the happiness that's our innate birthright. And you'll see people preparing for the day so that whatever it is that comes forward, they'll be able to do what needs to be done in the spirit of nonviolence, of truthfulness, of honesty, of faithfulness, and of a sense of freedom that comes from the absence of grasping. And then at the end of the day, they may stop by the temple again. And they may say, okay, it was a good work day, but, and then let the stuff of the work just literally roll off that body place that we inhabit, and then be able to rejoin the family, have a nice meal, very gently to interface. And some people never leave the house. Some people do all of this right at home. Other people do none of this, but they will go to a Stanasquasi stala and they will just sit, no images at all. If there's a monk giving discourse, they might listen. And in their own home, they would just simply sit and reflect. It's an integrated meditation.
That's beautiful. I almost want to ask you if you could lead us through an experience of integrative meditation today to the extent possible.
Sure. And I'll draw from experiences with the many sages, sants, saints, munis from Jain tradition with whom I've had the pleasure of sitting with and learning from. And on the one hand, we could take the avenue of just pure silence. But I'll use some words. To shape our thoughts, to guide our thoughts and perhaps to guard our thoughts. So feel those places where your body, made of earth, connects with the earth. Feet upon the floor, hands upon your lap. Perhaps back supported and legs and sit bones supported. And then from the inside, let the stuff of your earthiness translate it into your breath and musculature to relax. Relax the muscles of your jaw. Let them soften like putty. Of your cheeks, your head and your scalp. Let it relax. And feel and honor the gift of life within this body. And the gift of life in so many forms on this earth. And then take a moment to recall your last sip of water. And your most recent visit to a river, a lake, a pond, a stream, or the ocean. And invite in acknowledgement of the purifying powers of water. Then open your eyes just for a little bit and acknowledge the form in front of you, the color, the presence of light. And then close your eyes and remember the last time you witnessed the sunrise or the sunset. And feel again the purifying power of light and heat. And then quietly observe the breath, the next 3 breaths, the inhale and the exhale. The inhale, the exhale, the inhale, the exhale. And feel a little bit of stirring of wind on your skin. whether your cheeks, your hands. And then visualize yourself in space, protected by the four directions. And think of, to the east, the dawn of each day, bringing renewed commitment to live a life informed by nonviolence, by gentleness. And to your south, think of extending all the way to the south and receiving all the way from all things in the south. Your commitment to satyagraha, commitment to holding truth, to living truth, to being truth. To the west, invite in the courage of honesty, the commitment never to take more than needed, the commitment always to acknowledge those who have gone before. Honesty, so valued. Honesty, so important. And from the north, the darkness surrounding the North Star, find faithfulness. Find singularity of purpose, directionality of your desires. Harnessed and focused on a single point. Fidelity and faithfulness. And then, as if from above, with nonviolence to your east, truthfulness to your south, honesty to your west, fidelity to your north. Rise up above all four and look down on your body. With gratitude and with release. Our body is a vehicle. We ultimately own no thing. A parigraha, surrender all attachments.